Yeah, I'm posting it.
Okay, guys, I think we're live now.
We're live.
So welcome everybody. I hope people have joined. I don't see any counts.
I don't see it.
Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Stan Prokopenko with Proko TV. I'm joined here with Court Jones and Marshall Vandruff, really good friends of mine, great artists, good teachers. Court specializes in caricature, and I think now you do like fine art portraits and figures as well, right?
Yeah, I do portraits, plein air painting. I love doing that. But yeah, most of my career right now is still focused on illustration and mostly humorous illustration. But I am working on a cover right now for a local magazine that's completely realistic.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
And Marshall, Marshall does, he teaches a lot at colleges, and he specializes in perspective, storytelling, composition. What else? What did I miss?
Is all true. Storytelling, composition, anatomy, human, animal, general creativity.
Oh yeah, animal anatomy. Yeah. Here, guys, hold on a second. For some reason, it's saying we have 0 viewers, and I'm not seeing it on my YouTube channel.
It's showing up on your Facebook.
Viewers. I want to treat that 1 0 viewer as if they're the most important person in the world.
Actually, I've got 40 watching now on your YouTube page.
What are you watching?
Oh yeah, there it is. It just updated. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Never mind. Okay, now it's going. It's 59. Okay, cool. Anyway, so people are joining. So we have 2 ways of asking questions, guys. The one that I talked about in the announcement video that I posted a few days ago was you can comment on the YouTube page underneath the video. Another one that I just discovered as we were setting up the Hangout was there's a Q&A feature, but you can't do it through the YouTube page. You have to go to Google Plus and then do it through there. I see somebody already asked a question on there. So basically, you can ask a question in Google Plus on that watch page, and then you can upvote other people's questions and that sort of thing. So I'm not sure exactly how that works, but you can go either way. You can post a comment on the YouTube page, or you can go to the Q&A. So we'll be moderating both of them. All right, so I guess we'll go ahead and start. The first question that came in on the Q&A portion was, how do you warm up before drawing? I guess I'll start. I guess I just draw. I warm up by drawing. I usually don't do anything significant. I just do like little circles and shapes and stuff. Might do a little quick portrait sketch or a figure sketch and a pose, just from my imagination, just getting my hand going. I'll do that for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll actually start the drawing. I don't warm up for too long. How about you guys?
Well, I usually first do this and that. I'm like you. I pretty much just start drawing, and my first few sketches or my first few attempts kind of stink. They're a little stiff, and it's just kind of I start whatever assignment is that I'm doing. If I'm doing a celebrity head for a magazine, I'll just start doing a few doodles and for the purpose of completing that job. But I know my first couple sketches aren't going to be that great, so those serve as my warm-up sketches. It's like I don't do like the equivalent of push-ups or jumping jacks when I'm drawing. I just jump right into the race, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Marshall, you gonna do anything special worth saying?
No, and in fact, most of my drawing was illustration where there was careful preliminary work that had to be done, and it wasn't the kind of thing you would warm up for. I'd be doing drawings that were meticulous. If you imagine M.C. Escher with his meticulous preliminary work, where every line is defined as exactly as it can be, is hardly something that you need to warm up for. But I have found that when I do pen and ink drawing, I don't warm up, and sometimes the first few drawings that are improvisational drawings, gesture drawings with students, sometimes the first few drawings are some of the best because they're fresh, you jump into it, your energy's up. Sometimes they're the worst because they're out of control. And then after 5 or 10 minutes of doing little 1-minute drawings with pen and ink, you start to hit a groove. So the person who's asking this question is making me feel guilty for not having warmed up as I ought to have warmed up, because I think of some remarkable pen and ink artists, in fact, comic book inkers, who would never go at the comic book inking fresh. They would have a separate page where they do mark after mark, thin to thick to thin, thin to thick to thin to thick again, so that they're warming up, paying attention to those lines, and then there comes a point where it's easy. And that's when they go to the page, because pen and ink is an unforgiving medium that doesn't allow you to fix it easily, whereas when you are doing preliminary pencil drawings for an airbrush piece or a painting that you have more control over, those lines hardly need to be warmed up for. So that was a long answer to say that it depends on the kind of drawing that one is doing, but when you're doing risky drawing, it's going to be like dancing, where you could pull a ligament, then yes, it's wise to stretch first and get prepared for it.
Cool. Hey guys, so we're not sure if we're getting any comments on the YouTube page. Is everybody just commenting here or asking questions on the Q&A page? Go ahead and just, if you guys are leaving comments on the YouTube page, can you leave a comment now so we know it's working?
I can't see the questions. Can you, Stan?
Yeah, I can see the questions coming in here. So we'll just move on to the next one. Does learning caricature help with cartooning? Is there a marked difference? I think that one's for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you want to be a political cartoonist, I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know the difference between caricature and cartooning. What I think of when people say cartooning is, you know, the one-panel political cartoons you see in the newspaper, or, you know, comic strips, Garfield or whatever. And the purpose of those is usually not to get a likeness. It's more about to, you know, you're usually either making up characters or you're making a political statement, and likeness isn't really a main priority. Whereas caricature, the main purpose of caricature is to get a likeness. And secondarily, it has to be funny. And that's where the exaggeration comes in. So I think if you want to be a political cartoonist, definitely caricature, studying how to get a likeness in a funny, simple way would definitely help. But for other forms of cartooning, like comic strips, that wouldn't necessarily apply or really help you so much. So yeah, so I don't really do cartooning myself. I enjoy reading them, but yeah, I do mostly just caricature, illustration, and fine art.
Cool.
Does that answer the question?
I think so. I hope so.
When you answer a question and then somebody who's asked the question, can they grade how well we did?
No. Thank God. No, they can't do that. At least not that I know of.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see. It's kind of like with the Olympics, where you'll have the little grading things. I'll give you an 8 on that. Well, no, I won't give you an 8 on that one, Court.
Not even an 8?
I want somewhere to go with this.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, I just chose one at random here. Okay, general question. What, in your opinion, is the best approach to improve as quickly as possible at drawing and painting? Should I mash out a lot of pictures every day as quickly as possible, go for master studies, drawing a lot of stuff in perspective, or ... Well, if you just mash out a lot of pictures as quickly as possible, I don't think that will be good. I think the a lot part is good, but not as quickly as possible. You do want to focus and try to make them good. It's not just about the speed. Master Studies, also really good. Draw a lot of stuff in perspective. Yeah, if you're learning perspective at the moment, draw a lot of perspective. But basically, I think the best way to get good quickly is to get a pattern going, picking up some momentum. A lot of people, when they study, they'll do really good for a few weeks. They'll be on a schedule, and then something happens and they stop for a few weeks, and then they'll get back into it, and then they stop. And this sort of starting and stopping, I think, hurts your growth. If you are steady and consistent, I think you'll grow much quicker. Because you build on momentum, and your brain it's always on your mind, and you just make those connections in your mind a lot more.
You know what really helped me, if I can jump in, like when I started coming to the atelier here in San Diego, was getting just the structure of a drawing procedure that I had always just drawn however I'd wanted before that. There was no steps I took. I didn't have a overall objective or a methodology. And what Stan's teaching on his Proko.com videos is just that. It's learning a drawing procedure that, you know, he focuses on the head or the figure, but you can use those techniques to apply to anything you want to draw, whether it's from life or something you're inventing. You know, just the basic idea of working from big to small and using abstraction lines to help create the structure. Before I learned that, I was just trying every single approach known to man. I would try blind contour drawing. I would try drawing skeletons. I would try drawing the gesture. And I didn't really know even what to call them. I was totally undisciplined and didn't really know how to approach any new subject. I just started drawing it with no direction or focus. So the discipline of getting in with a good teacher and learning a procedure like through Stan's videos is just so super critical. At least it was for me.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I recommend people to go to Stan's videos. I want to jump in on this. That question is a very, very big question, and it has to do with how you learn anything. And there's new insight in it. There's a book people have been talking about, a book whose the title I cannot think of because I haven't read the book, but the concept of deliberate practice. That is to not multitask when you practice at something. To do it in short bursts of intense concentration, 20 minutes completely focused on this and shutting everything out, is a great way to master something, and it's better to do it for 20 minutes 3 times a week than it is to do for 60 minutes 1 time a week, because you get a chance to rest in between, and that way you're doing a lot of the work without even knowing you're doing it. You're doing it while you're sleeping. You work it, then you relax it, you work it, and then you relax it. But the question is about educational theory. It's about building skills. It's a large question, and I would ask a question in response to it, which is, what is it you're trying to do? If you say, what is the most efficient way to travel, you can give a person some travel tips. But if you ask them, where are you going to go? You're going to go to New York? You're going to go to Hawaii? You're going to go to Australia? Where are you going to go? And then we have some specific things that will help you when you go to that place. And if you are going to be an observational painter, your concerns are going to be different than if you're going to be a graphic designer. And if you are going to be an illustrator of someone else's work, then your concerns are going to be different than if you are a writer. And I know I'm getting away from the visual arts here, but you get the idea that we need to know where you're aimed. So let me see if I can take 2 more minutes with this to give you what I think is an ideal way to find out how to get an education. Choose your favorite masters that you want to be like. And if there was a shortcut to mastery, it would be to copy masters. Copying masters is not a shortcut. It ends up being a long way around, but it's as close as you can get to a shortcut, and let me explain why. When you choose somebody that you say, I want to be like that grown-up. When I get older, I want to be that way. You will copy their work and get to know it so well that you'll start to say, how is it that they did this? And the answer from a teacher who knows will say, they knew anatomy. Well, how is it they were able to draw it in a position that is not what they were looking at? I mean, I knew when I saw Jiminy Cricket jump over Honest John's head in the 1939 Pinocchio that that could not have been done by posing a cricket and copying it. How is it that you're able to move the camera around and have control of these forms? And the answer is you learn perspective if you care to do that. You don't need to learn perspective if you are trying to master a graphic designer's work who does not use that illusion of depth. And so you see that as you look at someone who works in color, look at how beautiful their color is. How can I get my color like that? And then somebody will take you through. You need to master your massing of lights and darks and your warms and cools and your knowing where your color temperatures are in relationship to each other. So the technical skills you need will be mastered according to what it is you're trying to do. And if you know what your goal is, that can make your education way more efficient.
Wow.
And if the person listening is, or if the person who asked that question has another question that follows on it, I mean, if that helped, because
well, there's a lot of questions.
Okay, yeah, then we should probably move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's see. So one is about the anatomy course. Is the facial muscles expressions covered in the anatomy course? No, the face won't be covered in the anatomy course, but I do plan on doing a completely separate lesson or course on advanced portraiture, in which I'm going to cover facial expressions, anatomy, or face anatomy, and differences between gender, race, and age, and probably some other things in there as well. So yeah, the face anatomy I'm going to cover in a portrait class. Oops, forgot to select that. Okay. Next one is...
Stan, are we supposed to be seeing the question?
I'm not sure what you... I'm going to read it. I don't know if you should be seeing it or not.
I'm not seeing it.
I'm going to read it. Whenever I draw digitally in Photoshop, happens to me traditionally as well. What? I didn't... Wait, what? I don't notice that my drawings tend to constantly skew to one side until I flip the canvas. This affects everything I paint. Nothing seems to be in balance. What can I do? Yeah, you know, this sort of thing happens to a lot of people. They tend to do similar things with proportions over and over again. I think the only way to stop that is to notice it or look for it every time and fix it every time. Have somebody else that maybe can call you on it and look at your drawings. It's just something that our eyes need. It's an adjustment that you need to make to your eyes, and yeah, I think it happens to all of us, whether it's really major things or smaller things.
Yeah, it happens to me a lot. What really does help doing that is starting your drawing with a really strong foundation built on abstraction and rhythms, because you can actually see the structure a lot better when you're not dealing with the details of the form or the details of the face or the eyes. And flipping it, like you said, you don't notice it until you flip it in Photoshop. That's great. That's actually part of the drawing procedure, either getting a mirror, standing back and looking at it, or flipping it. I mean, that's just part of my standard mode of operation these days. Because I think no matter how good you get, if that's a tendency of yours to always skew things a little bit, you just got to keep on trying to notice it, like Stan said, and flipping it's the best way because you're kind of looking at it with fresh eyes. But there is also one other issue that I see happen in certain people's drawings is it's actually a mechanical issue. They're not actually looking at their drawing surface perpendicularly. Is that the right word? You want
Yeah.
to have the whether it's paper or the tablet or the screen you're drawing on must be at an angle where the same angle that your head is tilted to look at it. So, if you want the screen here and your face here, if you're drawing on a surface like that and maybe you're right-handed, it's going to be off to the side just a little bit, and it's going to look fine to you when you're looking at it at an angle until you look at it upright, and then that's when you notice the skewing. So always make sure you're looking, I guess maybe parallel to your field of vision is the drawing surface, and that will be at least one thing you can do to get into better drawing habits.
Yeah, that's an elongation thing. It's the reason when they write things on the street that say pedestrian crossing, they stretch them out really far because you're going to look at them like that. And I've noticed that when students have their desks where they're drawing along that angle, they make things way too long. But if it's a left and right thing, I like what you said, Stan, that if you notice what it is, if you can name it, if you can diagnose it, I make legs too short. Well, it would make some sense to put the medicine right on that and make some legs that are too long. Lean the other way if you're finding out that you can name it. And the only way you can name it is you just have to study yourself. See that when something goes wrong, put words on it and say, I made everything kind of skewed to the upper left. And if you find that you've done that 5 or 6 times, then you can be pretty sure you're a skewed to the upper left kind of person, and that it wouldn't be a bad idea to push it the other way.
Yeah, that's one of the most common ones I see is the portions of the legs to the torso.
Yeah.
With newer students, and they tend to do the exact same thing every time. It's either all the legs are too long or all the legs are too short. That's an easy one to catch, though. You could just, really just measure. It's pretty easy to measure and check yourself with that. Or if it's skewing left and right and the whole picture is kind of skewing, it's kind of hard to check because it's a lot of various measurements. But one thing I used to do when my eye wasn't really well developed and I had to check on my own is if you're drawing from a photo, it'll only work if you're drawing from a photo. You can scan your drawing and you can overlay it over the photo and you can check your proportions that way. It's a really good way of checking it. And make sure when you take a picture of your drawing, though, that you're taking a picture straight on, because then it's just going to skew. The best way is to actually scan it. That's what I would do. I hope that.
Yeah, you also might want to have your vision checked too. I remember that 1985, a group of illustrators were getting Drew Struzan's feedback, and Drew said to one of them, when he looked at his drawings, he said, "Do you have astigmatism?" And the guy said, "Yeah, I do have astigmatism." And it didn't take Drew even 20 seconds to see it and name it. And I don't even remember what the issues were, but it could be that a vision problem could be making it worse.
Okay, cool. So let's move on. I'm going to take a few questions from the YouTube comments. Let's see.
Right.
Hi, I'm very new and not sure where to really start sketching. There's so many various methods and techniques, and what books do you recommend? Okay, so where do you start? Well, of course I'm going to say start with my videos.
Maybe I should, Stan, can I interrupt?
Yeah, go ahead and you answer that.
Maybe I should say I would start with Stan's videos.
Oh, okay.
This is at the risk of shameless plugging. It is at the risk of, we tuned into Stan's thing and it was a plug for his thing. But I tell everybody that this is, I think, the best stuff that I've seen that I wished had been around when I was 18 or 19. If you want to master classic drawing, he is putting together videos that are making it so that it's easier than ever. And it's sound stuff. So that's my first pitch is, Stan's videos. There, thanks for letting me do that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Marshall. The thing is, if you watch a lot of different artists on YouTube or wherever, there might be a lot of differences in the approach. Sometimes that's okay, sometimes it's bad because they're actually contradicting, and you'll need to focus on one method for a little bit of time. And then you can switch to another one and see if that one works better or not. I don't think it's bad to experiment with different methods or approaches to drawing, but I do think you need to focus. So pick somebody. Pick someone that connects with you better. Somebody that you understand better, and go with them. And eventually, once you learn enough, you start developing an eye for good instruction, good art instruction. And also, you'll start hearing people recommending the same books and the same videos to watch. And if you're part of a community or if you have friends, they'll be talking probably about the same stuff. If you're looking, so you also asked for book recommendations. I have a list on proko.com/books. Those are the ones I like.
I've got a list too on my website.
I'm not going to list them again. So, you guys have any favorite books?
Yeah, I've got a reviews section of my favorite books, trying to spare people giving them 100 books, trying to narrow it down to just. I mean, there's a lot of books that I think are good that I don't have on my site, but the ones I have on there are ones that, and little reviews to talk about. Some very good books have flaws. I think Nicolaides' The Natural Way to Draw is one of the most flawed books on the market. And it's also, in some ways, the best. So if you know that you're going into this with flaws, then you can be aware of them. And then there's some that are just almost perfect books, but that's all on my website.
If you were to recommend one book to a very new artist, what would you recommend?
Well, that's tough. That's tough.
Okay, two.
I've got one.
Go ahead.
And it's the book. Well, there are two books that I would probably have to save if there was a fire, and I can only pick two books out of my library behind me. Mm-hmm. It would probably be Harley Brown's Eternal Truths for Every Artist, and Richard Schmid's Alla Prima. And they're more about painting, but I mean they are about picture making in general, even though most of the examples are about painting. But I wouldn't call them actually really instruction booklets, but they're more about how to approach your art, how to think about your art. And there are some general procedure things and tips and tricks, but they're two of the best books I've ever read on the art process. Or Harley Brown's book and Richard Schmid's.
Would it be too much time to give like 20 of these books, or do we need to move on, Stan? Because I like Harley Brown's book too, and I don't have it on my list.
Well, I think we could list them, but I mean, we do have lists on our website, and people can just go on there. I don't think we should spend time relisting those, but I think just one or two favorites that you could recommend, and we can move on.
Well, with Richard Schmid's book is so geared toward observational painting. I enjoyed it a lot, but it was so geared toward observational painting that there's this huge other area that he doesn't deal with. Harley Brown's book at least is kind of true to its title. It's truths that every painter should know. I mean, these are classic principles, but I have books that are sort of a surprise. I would say that the first one that I would choose is an overview of what classic draftsmanship is, and it's Robert Beverly Hale's Drawing Lessons from the Great Masters. And it's important that you get that one, because Anatomy Lessons from the Great Masters is not his book. It has his name on it, but it's not really his book. And then he's got another wonderful book called Master Class in Figure Drawing that is a transcription of his lectures, but with errors. Mm. And again, those are on my site. It might be that between Harley Brown's book and Harley Brown's book picks up areas that Robert Beverly Hale did not deal with, which is composition and principles of how to make choices.
Okay, we're going to move on. Let's see. This one is from Nora Prism. Okay. Hey guys, thanks for hosting, participating in the Hangout. Will the perspective course also feature how to draw people in extreme angles, since this is what I struggle most with at the moment, to do both convincingly and with appealing dynamic results? Thanks. Marshall, that's for you.
To answer that one, the perspective course will deal with how to draw people at extreme angles.
Yeah, I've seen Marshall's outline. of the perspective course. It's ridiculous. It's going to cover pretty much everything that you might think perspective should cover.
Yeah, I'm ambitious for it. I am committed to making it so that in all of human history there is never going to be any resource that compares with what we're going to do. It's just we're going to cover it all. And there are artists who've known it all. Scott Robertson pretty much covers it all in his new stuff, in his new book, How to Draw. It's a very left brain approach, but it is as technically sound as anything you can find. And what I'm going to try to do is make it so that this is really easily accessible. Even if you're 11 or 12 years old, that you'll watch these things in 5 to 10 minute snippets, and that you will grasp this concept. And when we stretch that out over 60 of them, you're going to have pretty much all you need to know about perspective, and palatably. And definitely there is stuff in there. I'm concerned about how we will pepper it with how to draw organic things as opposed to just industrial things. That means people and animals. And how to draw them from any angle, not just looking down and looking up and moving your eye around them, but also something that very few people know how to do, which is that when you move in closer to something with a camera, it distorts, like when you look at somebody through a peephole in the door. Like what is happening with Cort. Everything changes. His head is twice as big as things behind him that we know, in fact, are twice as small. And that is the issue of proximity. It's how close you place the viewer. It has to do with controlling vanishing points. You learn to do it with a few simple things like a box, a cylinder, a sphere, and how things distort. And if you can do it with just a few simple things, then eventually you'll be able to do it with a hand, because a hand is made out of boxes and cylinders and spheres. So yes, that is a big, big concern, big part of what the perspective course will cover.
Cool.
I'm excited about it.
Get one more in there from the YouTube comments.
Now, actually, have we officially announced these courses that
No.
Marshall's doing one and I'm actually doing one? Is that
No, I haven't
come up yet?
announced it. Well, I mentioned them in my announcement video on Monday of this live hangout, and I said that you guys are going to be doing courses next year, and that this is time for people to meet you guys and stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess I did announce it.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what Marshall's talking about when he's talking about his perspective courses. His course on Proco.com.
It'll be a Proco course, yeah.
Yes, yeah. It's the future video course that's going to be on Proco.com.
We're going to give those previous Proco courses a run for their money.
All right, next question comes from Ezequiel Garibe. Gosh, I'm butchering these names. Okay, how do you guys see traditional drawing and painting nowadays? Do you think that new media, an example, digital media, is overtaking the old tradition of working with carbon or pigment? How do you see art forms like cinema, animation, or video games compared to the ancient forms of art in this century?
Wow. Can you highlight that one, Stan?
Oh, sorry, that one's from the YouTube comments,
Oh.
so it's not in the Q&A section, so I can't make it appear on your screen. But basically, old media versus new digital media. Do you think that new media is overtaking old traditional media? I mean, yeah, kind of. I mean, but it's just a different tool. It's still art, I think. Like when you
so many. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, wait. What were you gonna say?
Well, digital painting has opened the door for so many more people to start painting before they're ready, because it's exciting and it's easier in the sense that there's no cleanup. You can go over your mistakes until they're perfect, and you can paint completely without any sense personal style or signature use of color, because you can eye drop the colors from the original reference photos. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of detrimental if you jump into digital painting before traditional painting, and also especially before you're ready drawing wise, because no matter how convenient the digital tools are and how easy they make certain things. They're not going to draw it for you, and it's so much easier to create a generic, overly airbrushed work of art when you're working digitally. Since I had started painting first in oil and gouache, I think my digital paintings have that kind of feeling because that's the aesthetic I'm already have established. That's how I like to build form is the way a paintbrush works, a bristle paintbrush. And so I try to replicate that look when I'm digitally painting, and I think that's why my digital paintings are sort of distinctive. Like I don't notice my own style personally, but other people say they can see, oh, that's a Court Jones caricature painting there. And that's just an outcome of, one, my influences, my artistic influences, and two, my experience working with traditional media first. So, yeah, I do see it out there, and I think it's kind of a shame that it's actually enticing more people to jump into painting before they really should, and it's not the best entrance medium. I think it's a great tool. I use it all the time in my professional work because you can get that piece of art to your art director really easily without having to photograph it. But yeah, you should approach it after you've actually mastered, I think. Well, not mastered, but at least entered into the world of traditional painting first.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Learning traditional definitely helps with digital. But the thing is, like, the best artists will understand that, I think. I don't see it going away in the best art. Like, if you look at the best digital art, it's still really good.
Oh, yeah.
There's just a lot of really bad art because so many people have access to a computer and they can just open up Photoshop and draw and publish it on Facebook. So we're seeing a lot more bad art now because of the internet, and because it's so easy for people to start up, like you said. But I still think it's just a tool. And if digital takes over, it'll just make traditional oil paintings or graphite more expensive, and artists, the ones that are doing it, will be in more demand.
That's right.
So I think it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I think the artists that are really good will understand that learning traditional will make them even better, and they'll do it.
I just think it's an enticing trap, though, for the inexperienced artist to start painting and illustrating, because it does make certain things so easy. And I just want to caution people to, I guess just work with real paints as much as you can, and work on your drawing as much as you can before digital painting, because it may look easier, but it is a tool just like oil paints or other mediums. But yeah, it just lets you get away with, I don't know, more without having to really do the work necessary to get there. I don't know, I'm babbling now.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's go on. The questions are really kind of piling up. But there's 227 viewers, by the way.
Nice.
Okay, next one. An exercise to practice color. I guess I'll go ahead and start. For me, the best way to learn color was plein air painting. Because there's just so much color out there to see, and you're working from life. I think that's the best way of practicing almost anything. And I think it's really easy to see in a plein air painting when your colors are off. Everything just kind of looks either really too colorful and doesn't harmonize, or really muddy when you start blending everything. And it's pretty easy to just kind of compare your colors to a good landscape and see the differences in there. And also, it's a really easy exercise to do on a daily basis, because you can go to the same locations and you're going to get a new study every day, because the light changes. You might go at a different time of day. seasons will change, and it's really fun. It's something I never really got tired of. You know, a lot of exercises that are really technical, you're going to get bored of them after doing them twice. You know, so it's not good for, like I said, building those patterns of studying. You have to try to come up with exercises that you're going to want to do all the time. If it's too technical, you're not going to want to do it all the time. Plein air painting, I found, is very enjoyable and something that I could just keep doing for the rest of my life. So it's a great exercise for that. Also, just in Richard Schmidt's book, Alla Prima, he suggests doing these color charts. I think it's a good idea. I've never done it, but I think it would work. I've done something similar. I've done color wheels that start saturated and they go into gray gradually, and you have to mix all these little tiles in between, and you have to mix each one separately, and so you have to learn how to mix the colors exactly.
That color wheel you mentioned that we learned from this one teacher, that was my breakthrough moment for color, was understanding that color has 3 properties. Mm-hmm. That if you just list them, you know, if you don't really think about it until someone puts it into these clear terms. That color has hue, it's like red, yellow, green, or blue. It has a value of light or dark, and it has chroma, or intensity of saturation or less saturation. And that wheel where you do a saturated ring, a middle saturation ring, and a low saturation ring, and they all have to be the exact same value, taught me more about how to control my color than anything else. And I personally would find those Richard Schmidt color charts where you do just hundreds or thousands of little tiles of color tedious. That one color wheel exercise was so valuable to me, and it's done more than anything else, I think, in my career, as far as just understanding color and how to use it properly. And it doesn't have to be complicated. For the most part, you can see when colors and values are off, but that 3 chroma ring was really important to me personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys want, I made a video, I think it's called The Basic Elements. I cover a little bit of those 3 elements of color in there. I also talk about edge and shape. Yes, that's it. Edge, shape, and then color has value, chroma, and saturation. Or value, chroma, and hue. So I talk about that, and I explain it a little bit in there. I don't talk about how to make the color charts in there. Court, do you know any blog posts or anything that describes that?
I think Lemonade might have that.
Yeah, Ron teaches that really well. He had a group of people in the San Diego studio there at Park Boulevard, that students that he put through rigorous color mixing and color wheels and designs, and they mastered color in the shortest amount of time that I've ever seen people master color.
Yeah, Ron was who I learned that from, Ron Lemon.
Yeah, same here. I learned it from him as well.
Ron is the go-to guy.
Ron Lemon, L-E-M-E-N, or O-N?
E-N. L-M-E-N.
M-E-N. Okay, and I think he has a blog, Lemonade. Yeah, so it's on there.
I think so. I think he has some small visual aids and graphics and JPEGs with the color wheel on it, and a brief description of how to mix each of the swatches. Okay. How to get started mixing the swatches, not the whole thing.
Cool. All right, next one. How much influence? Oh, it's another color question. Okay. How much influence does the color of light make towards the local color of an object? But there's more to it. I get how the value gets affected, but I don't get how the hue shifts and saturation change towards matte and shiny objects by different colored lights. Well, the local color doesn't change. The local color is really the light, or the color of the object, technically without any light, right?
Well, that's one of those things, but it's going to change in your painting.
Right. It'll affect the color because it'll affect the way the object appears.
Yeah.
Just really try it out. The best way to understand it is to try it. Get a blue light bulb, get an orange light bulb, and point it at different objects and try to observe the difference in color. I mean, your question really is how much influence does the color of light make?
Yeah, 23%, 87%.
It's like 95%.
Again, Ron quantifies that. I haven't been through his class on it, but I know that he is a guy who cares about how the color of light affects the local color of the object, and he explains it in a way that students get it. So I would, again, go to Ron Lemon and see what he's got on it. And if you don't find that he's got something on it, request it. I'm sure he'll be happy to meet your need with an online class or whatever else. But he's the person that I would go to for that.
Yeah.
There's a couple good Gnomon DVDs on color too. Jeremy Vickery has a good one.
Oh, a good book. James Gurney's Color and Light.
Yeah, James Gurney's Color and Light, of course.
Awesome. And as always, Alla Prima, Richard Schmidt. That has a lot of good color stuff. Okay, another one. This one's from YouTube comments. I've been drawing since I was very young and have always had a love for art. Recently, I haven't been feeling the same passion for drawing. Do you have any advice as to how I can regain that passion? And that's from Carlin Casimir. Passion. You guys go ahead and start. I'm gonna think.
This is a therapy question.
Yeah.
This is an emotional question. Is it Carlin?
Yeah, I think so. Is it Carlin?
You say that you don't have the passion for the art for so much, but you have passion for something else. And if there's something else that is, there comes a point sometimes where you just find that you didn't love something as much as you thought you did. I don't think I ever fell out of love with art, with images. So it's hard for me to understand, but there can be a whole bunch of factors involved in this, and burnout is one of them. I don't know how many times I've seen students that as soon as they graduate, they go into a state of recovery, which is to avoid making art for about a year or two, if ever again, because they have been so thrashed by having their nose ground in it with incredible deadlines that make it a negative experience. So if that's the case with you, that could be one thing, but it's going to be a completely different thing if you say, I haven't been in school and I don't have any structure and I'm not motivated and I'm not hanging around people who are doing it. It's a whole different thing than if you've overdone it versus that you just don't have enough fuel and inspiration around you. So it's a difficult question to answer.
She said she felt more passionate as when she was younger, and now she just doesn't feel the same passion. I mean, I don't know, but I feel like maybe she just stopped because maybe something happened, like maybe family or.
Yeah, you got to tell us more.
Distracted. Yeah, I don't know the exact reason. I mean, we need to know the reason why there's no passion. But I guess general ways of getting more passion in drawing. I think trying something new, taking a class from somebody, a workshop. I always get new energy when I take a workshop with a good artist. I always learn something new from those. It gives me a new perspective on things. It's inspiring because if they're good, you see what they could do and you want to do it too. So you're motivated to go home and try to do that. You need something to work towards. You need a vision. If you don't have a vision of what you're working towards, then you need to find it. Go find examples of what you want. So I mean, that's one example. Is take a workshop.
Another idea might be, depending on what your interests are in art, is going to a professional conference. If you're budding portrait artist, go save up and go to the Portrait Society of America's and for caricature artists, there's actually one going on right now in Reno, the annual International Society of Caricature Artists. And those things are so insanely inspiring because you just meet so many other people with a passion that have all these different approaches to that art form that you come away so much richer, and you also gain a lot of professional contacts and friends too, which never hurts. You can also find just inspiration singularly in an artist. Maybe you find one day you'll come across an artist who just moves you, and like for me, that artist for the past several years has been Jeremy Lipke. I just love this guy's paintings, and that's something that I personally strive for in my fine art work, is like the subtlety that he works with his values. You know, you might have your own favorite artists, but if you can get a chance to see them in person at some gallery in a nearby city, or even maybe a classic artist in a big museum, you know, an old master like Zorn or Sorolla, when you actually see some of these works in person, it really can spark something in you that you may not have noticed just by looking at these pictures online or in a book, because there really is a lot that's left out when artworks are photographed. So, you know, expose yourself to more, whether it's, you know, original artwork or getting out there to conferences and trade shows for the arts.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with what you said about community. If you're around people that are excited about what they're doing, you're going to get that energy back. So definitely going to trade shows or conventions, meeting people. You need to be surrounded by people that have that passion, and you'll get it too. I think that's good.
Yeah. When you're trying to do it on your own, and you do not have other people around that can stimulate you when you're getting discouraged, it's just an ember just sort of burns out when it's left out in the cold. But you get several together, and they keep each other warm. Community is a big deal. But you don't mention what you are passionate about. If you just lost interest in it, and you've lost interest in a lot of things, that's an issue for a therapist. But if you have lost interest in art, but you've got other things that you replaced it with, it could be that art was a scaffolding that got you there, or better yet, put a whiteboard in your area, and on that whiteboard, write down the things you are passionate about. And include art up there, maybe in a separate category. And see if there is some other thing you're really excited about. Could not art be grafted together with that? If you're thrilled about butterflies or skiing or anything else, could it not be that your art and this could come together, if for no other reason, a subject matter?
Cool. Next question comes from Jesus. Oh, I don't know how to say this. A-C-H-E, how you spell. But the H is capital and the A is capital. Ake?
Don't even try.
Sorry, okay. The question is, if I want to learn animation, do I have to learn anything beyond superficial anatomy and bones? So I guess the question is just about anatomy as it relates to animation. I think there's a little bit of deeper muscles that you would need to learn, but mainly the deeper muscles that actually do affect the surface. They're not necessarily the top layered muscles, but they still affect the surface. So,
I think for animation, I mean, I'm not an animator by any stretch, but I would say the most important muscles to be aware of would be the ones in the face that help create facial expression. Because, you know, you can get a limb to move in animation, and it doesn't have to be as subtle as a facial expression has to be to communicate whatever's in your animated story. So I would say figure out the muscles of the face and how expressions work more than any other part of the anatomy for animation.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on what you're animating. You know, if you're doing really cartoony things, you don't need to know much anatomy at all. If you're animating Tarzan, you gotta know anatomy. You gotta really know it really well. But I mean, most of the time you can get away with superficial muscles and definitely the bones. Yeah. I mean, but eventually you kind of want to learn more, right? Just because it'll probably help in some way. Marshall, anything?
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do. Rubber hose animation of the 1920s and 30s does not need anatomy because the limbs are rubber hoses. But when Glenn Keane animated Tarzan, he needed to get familiar with how the body works so that simple drawings, but they're really authoritative.
Yeah. I mean, my thing is always, it's better to know more. You'll be more valuable to the company you work for, or you'll work to yourself. You'll be able to do other things. If all of a sudden animation doesn't work, you just have a vast knowledge base. Just knowing more is almost always better, I think. So.
Yeah, but when you're starting out and you don't know more, why not take some chances and be willing? I mean, when you're a student and you've got the luxury of failing, how did animation get developed so well in the 1930s? By the time 1939 came around and Pinocchio was done, it was just at an unbelievable level. We watched the Blu-ray on a big screen just a few weeks of the 1939 Disney Pinocchio, and it's stunning animation. And how did they get there? They got there by doing stuff in the 1920s that was not nearly so sophisticated, and then saying, hey, like to do more. Hey, like to do more. Like to do more. And so it had to gradually develop. And so once you get moving, figure, I want to animate. Okay, animate. And then see what you're unhappy with about it. And when you say, I don't really like that these characters are so simplified that they look like little rubber hose mannequins, that's when you know you need anatomy. But you very well may, if you're a genius, go the opposite way, right? Keep them simple. Make them primitive and crude because that's part of your shtick. Why are you laughing?
Sorry, I got a good question.
Okay, go ahead.
This is for you, Mark. Okay.
I'm afraid.
It's not I don't think it's as funny as I make it seem. Could you, Marshall, draw a comic book action pose with the body type of broad-shoulder Ron?
That's one of those inside questions that if a person wasn't there, they wouldn't even know what we're talking about.
Yeah. It's an inside joke from one of the previous videos, or critique video.
A superhero action pose with a broad-shouldered Ron.
Marshall, you have to draw it now. Do you remember what he looked like? It was just Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay, next question while you're drawing that. Would you say you are... Oh, here, let me select it. Okay. Would you say you are at the pivotal moment in your life and you are where you want to be in life until you get old and senile? This is from Harmony MC. Geez, I mean, I like where I am now. Pivotal moment in your life and you are where you want to be in life. Yeah, I am where I want to be in life. If I do the same thing for the rest of my life, I'll be fine. There's very little I am not happy with right now. So, you guys?
It's a pretty personal question. I think I want to know who this person is and what their agenda is.
Yeah, what what is the agenda? Yeah, why are you asking this? Harmony MC. Let me see here. I'm going to her profile. Huh. Posting a lot
Guessing by the name, I'm thinking Harmony MC is some kind of hippie DJ for parties.
It's really hard to tell who this is.
That's okay.
Of very random videos on their Google Plus. Okay, and they're not their own videos; it's somebody else's. Where am I? Okay, next question is from Jeez. I am studying classic animation at VFS. How would you recommend transitioning to concept art? I have played around with it and have a few years of experience. Any tips for digital painting? Oh, there's a lot of questions. Or how to exercise the imagination and come up with original ideas. So there's 3 questions there. Transitioning from animation to concept art. We'll start that, and let's do these quickly so we can go through it. I'm not sure how to answer that. I guess you just start illustrating. Start looking at concept artists and practice.
This question does not give enough information.
Yeah. How do you transition? I mean, both animation and concept art require good traditional skills, I think. So if you're a good animator, you should have a good base already to transition to concept art. The only thing you might need to learn is maybe composition, color.
And concept art can mean so many things. I mean, you can be
Yeah.
an environmental concept artist where you really need to draw cities and landscapes, all the stuff about perspective and digital matte painting if you want to do those like really high-end pieces. Of course, you can be a character concept designer. And there's everything in between with, you know, if you're working for a video game company, you just have to design props and guns and spaceships and bottles and just, you know, whatever world it is you're designing, you have to know so many things and how things work, how gears work on machines, how to make a spaceship look convincing with, you know, little greebles and things on it. When I did a little bit of studying to try to maybe get into concepting, I realized, man, this is a huge field of study of having to know so much about so many things. So it just seemed kind of daunting to me, and I thought, I'm just going to stick with like illustration, you know, and faces.
Yeah. I think developing that core, the fundamentals, you know, learning figure drawing, learning perspective, composition, color, all those really core things that can translate to a lot of different things. You could be an animator and you'd need to know those things. You could be a concept artist. You can be a plein air painter. You can be a figure painter. Even sculpting. It'll help to be able to draw the figure if you're going to sculpt the figure. So for all of these things, it's easier to transition if you have a good base of the fundamentals. So that's my answer. The other question is tips on digital painting and exercise to draw from imagination. Okay. Court, you do a lot more digital painting than me. I do very little of it, so you can answer that one.
Yeah, I've tutored some people and taught some digital painting intro courses, and some of the things, just a few quick things I could tell you that would really help you along is never once start on a white canvas. Some people, that depends on your own color sense and theory. It's not something you have to not do. But I don't like starting on a white canvas. I always tone it like a middle gray, and then I start from there. Another thing is design your own brushes after studying other people's digital brushes. Like you can download these amazing brush sets from people's DeviantArt pages. I think Peleng, P-E-L-E-N-G, is a really good one. Brush sets. Baron Thierry, another digital artist. I don't know if he still has his brush sets out there. But what I would do is look at his custom brushes and figure out, I would look at his settings after I downloaded the brush pack and figure out how he made them, and I would make my own brushes and figure out if I wanted to get a certain effect, like be able to have a texture brush to paint faces with, like what do I have to do? So learning how to build brushes is great, and tone your canvas. Just a few quick shortcuts there to help with starting digital painting.
Okay, and sorry, what was the other part of that question? It was drawing from imagination. I think to draw from imagination, you need to know a lot about what you're drawing. You have to be able to imagine it. A good way to start is to do exercises like one of them is draw from a photo, like actually looking at the photo, then put it away and try to draw it again. This will develop your memory for the human body or just your recall in general. Another thing you can do is to just look at a photograph for like a minute and study it, and then put it away and draw it. Same principle. I mean, you're developing your recall, just a slightly different version of it. And then, of course, if you're trying to invent something like a figure, then just doing a lot of figure drawing. You have to be familiar with the figure in order to invent poses. Anatomy definitely helps if you're drawing any kind of anatomy. If you don't know it, you're just going to start making stuff up, and it's not going to look realistic. It'll just be bumps on the surface.
But are you leaving out the main one? You're talking about inventing out of imagination. Is that right?
Yes. Perspective.
The main one is to turn it into something simple that you can memorize, right?
Yes. Yeah. One of the main things when you're inventing it is to be able to draw it from an angle that you're imagining it, and perspective will help you. Yes.
Well, if you think about how complex is a horse, if you're talking about a horse's body, a complex thing takes a long time to learn. But if you can draw a barrel and move the barrel around, you've got the center portion of the horse. And if you can draw a great big beach ball and put a few lines around that and put them on the back of that barrel, you've got the back end of the horse. And then if you can draw a tombstone that is sort of tapered at the top and has a definite cut right there, you've got the four-quarters of a horse. And the Cortina Famous Artist Library, it's the How to Draw Animals book from the 1950s, wonderful book, makes these very simple sort of mannequins of animals that are memorizable. A horse is too complex to fully memorize, but you can memorize a barrel and a beach ball and a tombstone and put those three things together, and you got the great big parts of a horse. And not only can you memorize them, with a few months of practice, you can draw them from any angle. So there we go. Why are you laughing?
These questions.
Oh, Rita, we need some humor relief here. Bring some of the worst questions.
What? Someone's making fun of my new hair.
It is kind of foppy. I wasn't going to say anything, but I mean, it's nice.
Is it too much?
That's Court's domain.
I don't know. I like it. Round Brush Steve. Yeah. Thanks, Round Brush. I like my hair.
There's a bit of an old-fashioned vibe going on. I don't know what it is. It's a little.
Oh, another one about my hair. How do you cut your hair so perfectly, Broco? Answer me. Also, what's your opinion on pen art compared to pencil art? I don't have an opinion.
We need deeper questions than this. And what kind of birth control do you use?
Hey, there was a question I read earlier. It probably went down the list, but it was just a real short question. Any advice for beginning freelance artists, I think, was roughly the question.
Hold on. Let me find it.
It's a very broad question, but I think a very useful one to a lot of people that might be on a lot of people's minds.
Oh, wait. Where's...
Want to do that one, Court?
Well, no. You guys can. I like the question.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I'm selecting it now, so we have to answer it. Any advice for beginning freelance artists? Okay, well, make sure your skills are there. If they're not, you're not going to get any work. Second, once you got the skills and you're ready to put together your portfolio, start getting contacts. Or actually start doing that before you have the skills. Start making friends, start going to conventions, and just start getting opinions from professionals. The earlier you start networking, the easier it's going to be for you to get a job when you're ready. Be easy to deal with. I think a lot of people don't get jobs because they're maybe hard to deal with. They don't meet deadlines. The stuff travels. You know, the art directors. They know each other. They talk to each other. They ask each other for recommendations. So if you're really hard to work with and you don't meet deadlines, they're not going to recommend you. So just be easy to work with, have your skills, and know people.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
And there's so many bits of nuggets of advice. You could go on for hours with nuggets of advice, and this is just one thing that's a little controversial, I think, for some people. Is that doing work for maybe a smaller client that doesn't have a big budget, you know what that kind of job might normally pay, or you've heard other people what they get for certain jobs. Like, should you do a job that has potentially good exposure but for very little pay? Some people would turn their nose up at it, but I've had a few instances where I have done a job for literally next to nothing, and it was a big painting, but it was for a cover for like a local newspaper. It ended up getting me a lot of exposure and won a couple of major awards later on, like a year later. And I don't know if anything big has come from those awards, but at least those are things I could add to my resume. And I wouldn't have gotten those awards if I had turned my nose up at fee. I think anytime anyone offers you the cover of anything, you should probably do it if you're just starting out, because you really need portfolio pieces, that have the magazine masthead on it, and it shows that you can work with clients and that you can meet their demands and you can tell a story with your images. And I guess that's more for illustration than other types of freelance art, but don't be too paranoid in the beginning about getting taken advantage of by people with low budgets. I mean, you can't do everything that comes your way by people that have no money and no street credentials. But if you come across somebody who maybe they do have, maybe it's a writer or maybe it's someone who has a product that needs an illustration. If they have a track record of stuff they've sold and they have a real good vision, and maybe you can get a little bit more money down the road after things sell, and you're not doing anything else, if you have some free time, maybe use it to build your portfolio with some more professional pieces, even if it's not for a lot of money. But if you are getting other work that is paying, you can't do that. What I call it sometimes charity work. But it does sometimes lead to better things down the road if you compromise a little bit your principles in the beginning. Would you guys disagree with that? I don't want to
No,
say
I wouldn't
that's
disagree.
necessarily good advice, but
There are people who would disagree with that. There are people who would be curious that you just said what you said, but I've had some of my biggest breaks by doing stuff by being exploited. I mean, if you're exploited, if you let people take advantage of you, you got to get something out of it, right? And what you get out of it might be better skills. What you might get out of it might be exposure. What you might get out of it is to take their job. There's all sorts of motivations for doing something, but I'll talk too much. I've got a 4-hour seminar called How to Get Hired in the Arts, and it's all true stuff about people's careers. I was freelance all my life. I've been freelance. I had my first full-time job at 53 years old, and that lasted for about 3 years, and I don't have a full-time job anymore. But yeah, freelancing is a whole different way of life than being a studio artist where you go to a job and you're hired to do one kind of thing. And it's a complex question. But I'd go back to what Stan started with and what people have summed up. If you have really good skills, and if you are good to work with, and have a reputation, people just get a reputation, as Stan said. And then the third thing is that you come in on time. You make people's lives good. Word gets around. It was very, very hard to get the first few freelance jobs. But after several years, I'd get jobs without even showing my portfolio, just because they'd be by referral. But yeah, skills first, portfolio to show it, network, make friends, and then when you get the opportunity, make it so the person that you work for is so glad that they had you, and then word gets around.
Cool.
Yeah, but watch out for the sharks, the people who come at you with that old line, oh, well, we can't pay you, but it'll be great exposure. You just got to watch out for the people that really are going to take advantage of you and not give you much actual exposure or anything in return. You really got to read each new person and each new client as they come up, and you got to separate the sharks from the people who have a genuine passion for their project that you can help them out with.
Yeah, and that's where it helps to be in community, too, because usually when there's somebody who's predatory for artists, somebody smells it, somebody figures it out, and if you're around people, somebody's going to say, hey, this person takes advantage of you, and it's never going to go anywhere if you can't see it yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Man, there's so many questions. I'm having a hard time filtering these.
So your job is to discern which questions are worth the time.
Yeah, I'm sorry if your question doesn't get read. I'm trying to find questions that will be good for a lot of people rather than like one specific person. So if your question doesn't get answered, I'm sorry. Let's go to this one. If you haven't dealt with it already, what do you say to people that object to nudity? Is there something that you fail to convince them?
Well, I don't know. Why don't we try it now, everybody?
Yeah.
Just,
All right, folks.
who objects?
No.
Is that what they mean? No?
I didn't. When we started the Hangout, I could have checked 18 and plus only, but I didn't, so I don't think we're allowed to take our clothes off.
I want the person who objects to nudity. I want that person on screen with me. I want to converse with them, and I want the camera on them, and we're going to have some fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of comments like that. Like when I release a video and there's a reference picture I'm drawing from, and it's a nude. There's a lot of comments that are like, "Ew, why are you drawing that? Why are you watching that? You know, you clicked on it."
We need a person who objects to nudity to get on here. That's what we need, and actually share some FaceTime with them.
Yeah, I don't know how fun that would be.
Questions.
I mean, there's some cultures in general that are just against nudity, and that's just because they're brought up that way, and that's fine. But I mean, what's the point of trying to convert anybody though? If they don't like it, they don't like it. Who cares? They're not gonna. If you're trying to convert somebody so that they could buy your artwork, it's not going to work. They're not going to buy nude pictures. If you're trying to do it just because they're maybe a friend and you want them to enjoy some more art, I don't know. Show them some really good nude paintings. Maybe they'll like it. I don't know. Anyway, let's go on another one. I thought that was a fun one. From DJ Joe. That sounds familiar. In perspective drawing, what tools would you use to keep things in perspective and know how they relate to size? So, Marshall, perspective tools.
In perspective tools, the way that is done with the grid. And the grid is not the kind of grid that you buy or that is printed out. It's that you decide that for this picture, my eye level is here and my vanishing point's here. Or my eye level is up outside of this picture, and I'm going to be looking down on things and vanishing points are going to be going up. And when you've decided that, you draw some lines, and you can just do them roughly, and then you know where those X and Z lines, those width and depth lines, go. You may have to do more than one grid. There may be things that are spun into different directions. But the answer to your question is that you do very light guidelines called grids, and that way you can focus on the small parts, and you've got this nice big grid that keeps you from going wild. Can they grade my answer so that I can know whether I should stop?
No, I'm sure that was good. Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Let's move on.
Let's move on. I knew that was.
We'll deal with all that when we'll deal with all that when we are teacher student.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Is composition something that one learns primarily by experimentation, or do you learn a core set of rules you can combine? How would you recommend learning composition? There are some rules, but they're not really rules. They're kind of guidelines. Yeah. They're formulas, I guess. Marshall, what? You obviously have something to say.
Keep going, but I just rules can be used when you're talking about perspective. When you're talking about composition, what kind of rules could you possibly make?
There's formulas. I guess that's the better word for it. There's formulas that you can use to come up with a good composition.
Yeah.
But you can have compositions that are not in the rule book.
Name some formulas. Let's talk about the formulas.
Okay, so Steelyard, that's like the most common one, right?
Right, that's the Steelyard.
That's the big
lanyard.
Something big closer to the middle, but towards one side, and then something small more towards the other side, and it kind of balances it off, but it's not symmetrical.
Okay, I'm writing these down. There's the lanyard and Steelyard.
But you can break that, and you can still make it work. It depends.
Now, there's a book with all these formulas, right? Is it Harold Speed's book, Composition in Art? Is that the right title and author I'm thinking of? Who has all those listed?
Is it Edgar Payne?
Edgar Payne, yeah, not Harold Speed.
Okay, yeah.
Harold Speed also. Keep going. We've got the lanyard or the Steelyard thing. We've got the big thing in the front. There's the rule of thirds.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, there's the L, the triangle,
yes,
the S curve.
Okay.
Yeah, the triangle, that's like the heroic thing where, Frank Frazetta used it a few times. The thing at the top will be the thing at the top. It's the heroic thing.
There's the
general,
golden
right?
mean.
Everything's kind of pointing up to it.
Mhm.
Wait, what'd you say, Marshall?
The golden mean, the golden section.
Yeah, you know, I've done a little bit of testing with that, and it's kind of,
We're opening up a can of worms here, but this is something could be a teaching moment. What do you think? Should we pursue this, or should we just wrap it up with a maxim?
I don't think we should pursue it. Basically, the question is, how would you recommend learning composition? That's the last part of the question.
Hey, I have something to say about the golden mean. I actually made myself a pair of golden mean calipers from a template I got online. So it measures 1 to 1.618.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I don't know, I got into it for a while. It was like you could analyze the works of the masters, and they would always have like important divisions in the canvas along the golden mean. Then you can take it to your face to see, you know, if you're perfect, if you have the ideal measurements. So it's pretty fun. It always maintains that same ratio of 1 to 1.618.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's fun little trick or tool. It's more of a novelty than anything else.
Yeah, it's a novelty. But this does say a lot about how serious you were about learning composition.
yeah.
I think the biggest thing to take away from that is the mentality that is required to get that good at composition. You know, you freaking made a golden mean caliper. What the hell?
Yeah, it has. I just went to Home Depot, got the little bolts.
Can
Yeah.
you run with this one for just like you want to put a timer on me so that I don't go for too long? How long can you want to give me to answer this question?
One
Go ahead.
minute.
Give me a minute, 2 minutes, 3
I'm
minutes.
going to give you a minute.
A minute?
Yes, because
Yes.
it'll make you.
All of those things that we mentioned about the rule of thirds, golden mean, all that, those are recipes. Those are formulas. Those are the kind of things that if you want to cook here, follow these recipes and you've got it. You're going to have some guaranteed meals that you can serve to your friends. But if you are going to create new recipes, if you're going to come up with your own compositions that are unique to you and that your personality comes through in a special way, then I would say that be aware of those formulas, maybe learn from them, but eventually you're going to make up your own compositions, and you will do this by looking at stuff you love until you ingest the abstract pattern. It may be smoke, it may be cast iron architecture, it may be Howard Pyle and N.C. Wyeth, it may be fractal patterns, it may be the way water, when you put oil into water, and when you absorb that kind of abstract imagery and then you make your own compositions, you are going to be designing with that as a metaphor.
Nice.
That's the great way that people find their creativity. And it applies to music, it applies to writing, it applies to a bunch of other things. Now, did I do it within a minute?
Yeah, I think so. I really wasn't keeping track.
Well,
but I think so. Anyway, hi Stan. I've been looking into doing some from real life drawings. What place do you think are best for doing those types of art? This is from Derek Bauthiler. What places do you think are best for doing those types of art? Real life. What places? Like schools?
Well, every city you can probably find just open drawing workshops where they hire models. I mean, there won't be instruction most likely, but at least you'll get some experience, and that's really important. But if you're lucky enough to be in a city with a private instructor or an atelier school, where you don't have to, it's not like a university that you have to actually enroll in, or you can just sign up for classes a la carte, that's going to be your best option probably. Hopefully with an instructor or an artist that you admire already.
so say the question again.
It basically, he wants to do drawings from life. What places are best for doing this?
Now, is the question like, is it best to go to the park, or is it best to go to the mall, or is it best to go to the mountain range? I'm not sure I understand the question.
We can interpret it however we want. What's the most useful way to interpret this question?
Southern California is the best place to do
Really?
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Hawaii might be great too, but I've never been there.
I mean, so you think better than, like, East Coast? There's a lot of good ateliers there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Well, then, give us some schools. If somebody really wants to get good and they want to go to the best place in the world, give people some options.
Now, but are you talking, though, about where to go to learn That's what I don't understand. Or are you saying, is it better to go to a place that has sunshine all the time or a place that has seascapes? I just don't
understand. From life. Let's just assume that they're talking about figure drawing.
They're talking about figure drawing and where to go to learn.
Yes, let's assume.
Oh, okay, yeah, I have an opinion about that.
Go ahead.
Go wherever you want, because now you have access to all sorts of teachers and all sorts of resources like nobody ever had before. But if it's hard to do alone, get a little pack of friends. Find a few others who are interested in studying the same thing you're studying in, animation, figure drawing, whatever, and live wherever you want, and then study together. Make your own little club.
Oh, so what were you talking about Southern California? Why is that the best?
Well, I was wondering where they're saying, where's the best place to go? Like, is it better to do landscapes, or is it better to do cityscapes, or is it better to do big cloudy skies, or is it better to do seascapes? I didn't understand the...
Oh, so that wasn't a serious answer then.
Yeah, no, it was not a
lot of people.
Because it's like, how would we know?
And it's going to get even more traffic here. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't have to be... If you're in Southern California, you got some great place. Where in Southern California, you've just got a lot of professionals. New York,
yeah.
I'm sure, has the same thing.
Oh yeah, that's true. I didn't think about Hollywood and all that, but you know, San Francisco's got good stuff too.
If you're going to go to a place where you want to get into the industry that's there too.
Yeah, Marshall, do you know any good colleges to go to outside of California? I know that a lot of people have been asking me. I'm not familiar with a lot, but do you know?
I know of good schools. I mean, I know that, but again, I don't know enough about them. No.
Okay.
I don't want to speak on behalf of other schools when I don't know that much.
Court, you?
Again, I know of schools where colleagues went and friends went, but you know, I haven't experienced classes myself. But you know, I've heard good things say about the Ringling School in Florida.
George Pratt is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, Rhode Island School of Design, I've heard lots of good things about. But smaller ateliers, again, it's one of those things I'm not too hip on. I know the Art Renewal Center website has a list of approved atelier schools that they would recommend to study traditional life drawing and painting. Most of those are more academic drawing and painting, where you're learning to draw and paint like Jean-Léon Gérôme. You know, it's a very, like, they use sight-size method, they use very strict principles. Other schools, like the Watts Atelier, is a little bit more, it's not quite as academic, you would say, but you still learn good procedures there here in Southern California. But I would say the ARC website, artrenewal.org, has a list of good small ateliers around the country and around the world where they would approve of the values being taught at those small schools.
Yeah, I mean, Court and I both went to the Watts Atelier, and we can both vouch for the quality there. But we didn't go to any other. Or did you study anywhere else, Court?
Not seriously, no. I mean, I went to a university here in San Diego, but the art program was not very hands-on and practical, which is the case with most university art programs.
Yeah, in general, you want to avoid the universities and you want to go to an atelier, but there are some good universities out there. Marshall, you teach at a few, and those tend to be good, right?
Yeah, but they are rare.
They are very rare. So in general,
the joke is that if you want to learn classic drawing, if you want to learn to draw like the great masters drew, you are more likely to randomly find somebody walking on the street, just throw a rock and hit somebody, and they're more likely to know it, much more likely to know it, than anyone who has graduated from an American university with an art major, because they've been protected from it. It's been thrown out, and it's been argued against, and it's a whole big cultural, social phenomenon in this country that has dominated conversations for years, having been around it. But it's why I didn't bother with it. I wanted to learn how to draw, and I had to learn it from books.
Yeah, I was just looking at the wording of the question we were just dealing with here, and they have "from real life" in quotes, and I don't know if we're really hitting on what they're thinking of, but I've gotten great advice from an animator friend who says if you want to draw from real life, and if you want to maybe study character design for animation, go to Walmart or McDonald's, any place where you're going to find a wide variety of character types that exist in nature. Walmart just is a good place for that. So it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but there is some truth to that.
Yeah. They're by far the best place to go. There is no question where the best place to go is. The best place to go right now is online. You've got access to more than anyone ever dreamed possible. And I mean, a library didn't have a fraction of what you have online. So that's the best place to go. And then where you can live wherever you want to and find your colleagues.
Yeah. Okay. How to train my eyes for drawing portraits. I thought this was a fun one to answer, just because it's a very common question, but I think it's kind of obvious. Like I don't know how to answer it. How to answer this question well. I mean, you basically do the same thing that you would do when you want to get good at anything. You practice it. Repetition is key here. You look at a lot of good portrait artists and you try to copy them. Expose yourself to the medium. Just swim in it. Just everything portraits, and you will learn it. It's also a very vague question, so it's hard to answer. But you guys have anything good? I always struggle with this question. I get a lot of these.
You know, the exercises I found most helpful when trying to improve my portraiture is doing gesture quick sketch portrait drawings, you know, where you're doing 2, 3, and 5 minute poses for the head, because you really have to economize your thoughts and your process then. Then the 20-minute pose, which is sort of like just enough to get a really decent lay-in, a block-in drawn in. And then you can like maybe do those as your warm-ups, and then do your 3-hour pose where you're actually doing an actual likeness, where you're rendering and shading, or you're doing a life drawing. But the gesture sketches and the gesture paintings, where you're spending, well, if you're doing a gesture drawing, 2 to 5 minutes. But if you're doing a gestural portrait painting, you know, 5 to 10 to 20 minutes, it would be a good amount of time for a gesture oil painting with portraits. And doing that rapid-fire repetition of those gestures is really helpful. It doesn't really help your accuracy so much, but it does help you economize your brush strokes, your pencil strokes.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. Those are definitely good exercises, but you want to make sure that you don't just do that. A lot of people stick to quick sketch and that's all they do, and they never do like a really long study, like 20 hours. Like, I mean, like really long study. Try to make it as perfect as possible. Eventually, you're going to get quicker, and you'll be able to do in 3 hours what you used to spend 20 hours doing. But that takes that time of doing it for 20 hours, and then also trying to do that in 5 minutes. You know, how can you take what you did in 20 hours and simplify it so much that you can do it in 5 minutes? You have to basically take the most essential parts of that out. Yeah. And once you know how to do that, once you practice doing it for 5 minutes over a few years, then you can do a really nice portrait in 3 hours. Yeah. But it takes those two extremes, the 20-hour ones and the 5-minute ones, to be able to really get good at the middle ground.
Yeah, that's like what Kimmo Nicolaides said about how to practice drawing. He said that you should do it fast and furiously and slowly and painstakingly. Mm-hmm. If you only do one, that means you can only do slow and painstaking, and you have no ability to improvise or think on your feet. And if you only do fast and furiously, it means that you're not going to slow down and control your steps.
Cool. You guys have anything else to add to that, or move on?
I'm not a portrait artist, so I have nothing to say.
Okay. All right, down with that one. Let's see. Oh, by the way, guys, I'm not really looking at the YouTube comments anymore. My wife was here. She was filtering all through those.
How many questions have we had?
How many questions do we have? What?
Have we had all together? How many questions have come into us?
Oh, geez. I mean, I know that there's like 130 YouTube comments or something.
Yeah. Wow.
So I'm not going to start scrolling through them. There's a lot of questions here in the Q&A section.
But like we've got questions in?
What?
We had hundreds of questions?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so basically what I'm saying, guys, is I'm switching over just to the Q&A section in the Google Plus area where you can ask a question for the remaining 30 minutes or so.
Do speed questions? We were doing that slow and painstakingly thing. Shouldn't we do a Fast and Furious where we have like 20 seconds to answer a question?
Well, I've been trying. Pace.
Whoever most noise gets to answer it, and 20 seconds to answer it. And that way we can cruise through a bunch of them?
Yeah, we'll see how the questions are. If it's a question that can go quickly, we'll do that. If it's something we should spend time on, we'll do that.
I'm rarely good for speed questions.
Yeah, okay, so this one is from Bryce Patala.
Okay.
Is a beautiful study less art than a work of art steeped in concept and meaning?
Yes.
Whoa. Yes, I agree. Actually, it is. It's less art because there's not. I mean, you're not creating anything new, right? It's a study. Yeah.
You should always try to create the most beautiful studies you can, because that will help you when you set down to create your finished work of art. You know, the thing that you're going to submit to the gallery show has to be built on, lots of training, trying to do the most beautiful studies you can. Don't do a study just to get an accurate study. Do a beautiful study. Always try to do a beautiful drawing. Always try to do a beautiful painting, no matter how much or how little time you're spending on it.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, less art. But who cares if it's less art?
Yeah. That's for someone else to decide what art is. I mean, I would love to hang a sketch study by Richard Schmidt on my wall, even if you spent 10 minutes on it. I don't care. To me, that's a work of art. I guess it depends on who the artist is and how good their studies are.
Yeah, that's true. If Richard Schmidt did a study of my drawings, I'd rather hang Richard Schmidt's study than my own drawing. I mean, I'm pretty sure most people would as well, right? I mean, his study would be better than my drawing, so it depends. He would probably make it more art than my original drawing. But
this is one of those questions, though, that prompts the question, why are you asking this question?
Yeah, so this is one that we should probably move on. The general answer is yes, it is less art. But you should still do it because it helps you grow to be able to make your own more art. Okay, I've been learning all of my art digitally. I even practice life drawing digitally. Do you think I should switch to pencil and paper to learn?
I think you should.
Yes. We kind of covered a little bit of that earlier. Yeah, traditional will make you a better digital artist.
I mean, you definitely can do beautiful, beautiful work in drawings with digital tablets. There's no question. But I mean, why would you avoid pencil and paper and canvas? It's so much more fun, and you get to keep the originals too. For later on down the road for your collection to sell, and it's just just that tactile feedback of real paper. It gives you something that the digital tablet doesn't, as far as that feedback. Knowing how the line is progressing, you can just feel it on the paper. Then you can't really do that on the tablet. I mean, that being said, I constantly am drawing and painting on my digital tablets, but you always got to go back to that paper when you can.
Yeah, if you ask people that do both, I think there's very few of them that would say, no, you shouldn't do traditional, that you should only focus on digital. Because it really is important. But yeah, we covered a little bit of it, so let's go on to the next one. Say you want to be an animator and you have a fairly good variety of art like colleges within your area, like the Art Institutes, Southern New Hampshire, etc. Which art college would be best for a career in animation?
Well,
Not my
one
field.
of the famous ones. CalArts is a famous one.
Yeah.
I teach at Laguna College, and I am around some of the best teachers I know. Dave Prooksma, Dave Kuhn, and a number of others that are there are just they're champion people, and they're really good former Disney animators, retired or they went on to other things. But I love being around the teachers there because the students are getting really good. So I recommend that.
Yeah, and if you can't move to California or go to Ringling in Florida, or I think Canada has one, Vancouver?
Sheridan, yeah.
Yeah, if you can't go to any of those, there are some, I think, some pretty good animation schools online now, too.
Yes.
You know, the animators from, like, the studios are teaching at those, so...
Yeah.
Do you have any that come to mind that you know of?
Animation Mentor? Is that...
Animation Mentor has a good reputation. I've had some students that have taken Animation Mentor classes and liked them.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't taken any of these, but if you type in Animation Mentor versus, you might get some Google suggestions of some other ones. And just look at the instructors. If they're working at a good studio, they're probably good animators, and you want to study with them. So that's probably the easiest way to get to a good animation school.
If you want to save time, do not miss out on Richard Williams' Animator's Survival Kit. It is just so good. It's some of the best teaching I know. He turned them into a video series, and in fact, I was asking Dave Pruxma, a former Disney animator, about somebody who's trying to learn limited animation and just wants to learn how do you get good at limited animation, I mean primitive animation. And I say, like what they did in the 1960s with Rocky and Bullwinkle, which is very limited animation, TV animation for Hanna-Barbera at that time had to become simple and efficient and limited. And he said the first thing to do is learn animation. He said, because when you look at what happened with Rocky and Bullwinkle, those are simplified animations, but those animators were good. A number of them came from MGM. They were full finished animators who now had to be creative and get it done every week and cut corners, but they did it well. They're aware of weight. They're aware of the things that make it involving that an amateur who hasn't been exposed to those things can't do with their limited animation. And Richard Williams is not only a good teacher, but Stephen Chiodo, who did Large Marge in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and he animated Vincent for Tim Burton. He's done a couple workshops in this area, and he said he was going to do he's a stop-motion animator. He said he was going to do a course on stop-motion animation, but he decided that he didn't need to because Richard Williams' course is exactly all the stuff a stop-motion animator needs to use. So just Richard Williams' course, and then do your stop-motion animation, you're going to be using the same principles. So if you want to save time, learn as much as you can of the theory, and then go to teachers, and then start to work out the projects, because the theory isn't good enough. You're going to have to actually start animating, and the feedback you want on your animations has got to come from professional animators. It's got to come from people who really understand anticipation and squash and stretch and drag and follow through and all of those other things that animators care so much about.
Court, do you have anything to say? I'm filtering through some of these questions while you were talking.
You know, I'm just looking at this one question for a while. It's just a little technical question, but I thought you might tackle it. From David Rodriguez, how to measure a face with a pencil. I just can't do it. My first thought on that would basically be, I don't use a pencil to measure the face. I only use it when I'm measuring the figure, because the distances I'm normally sitting at from a model in a typical classroom or a workshop is the features on the face are just too small to measure with your thumb and the pencil. It can be done, but you know, you're going to move your hands if you move it just slightly, those measurements are going to be off. But it works really well for the full figure when you're trying to measure the distance between the head and the chin and the breast and down to the navel. Those are the adequate measurements and distances for the pencil measuring. For the face, we just use sort of comparative observation, relative observation. You know, how far is the nose from the ear? How far is the eyebrow from the head? And you can sort of do it without the pencil. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So I think when I personally get involved with the face, you can't really use that measuring stick or the pencil much anymore. You use the abstraction to build up the face gradually from a sort of a wireframe. and then you check those measurements. You sort of eyeball them, if you will, and then you start to commit to them if they look right. Does that make sense? Do you do this? Do you have the same approach, or do you guys use the pencil on the face? Because I haven't had good luck with that myself.
No, never used a pencil. Measure the face.
No, I don't. I just use my eye. If I'm drawing from life, it's too far away. It's too small.
Yeah.
If I'm drawing from a photo, and I really want to measure to get it accurate, I'll use a piece of paper, or I'll put the top of the paper on a spot, and then I'll mark on the edge the other spot, and then I can measure it. And that's a pretty accurate way of measuring it on photograph. But if I'm drawing from life, no, it's too small.
How are you seeing these questions, Court? You're seeing them on YouTube?
People actually still on the left side. There's a Q&A icon. Remember?
Well, you have to tap the center of your screen to get the Q&A icon to show up, I think.
Got it. I got the Q&A icon.
Okay, there you go.
Oh gosh, I haven't been able to see any of these questions.
No.
Stan, who could have been altering them.
Yeah, I see one here. It's about the anatomy course, so I'm going to read it. At Stan, signed up for your anatomy course. Yay! What would you recommend one do as a prep before the 24? Ooh, well, first of all, thank you for signing up. Prep before. Jeez. I mean, I'm going to try to cover everything in the course itself, but I mean, I guess it wouldn't hurt just to start going through some books and start trying to do some anatomy studies of your own, just to kind of see where you're at right now. I'll tell you some of the exercises that we're going to be doing in the course. So a good one is you get a photograph, you get some tracing paper, and you try to track the muscles on the tracing paper of the photo you're drawing. This is really good to be able to look at the surface anatomy of somebody and be able to identify what the bumps are. And in order to do this, you have to first know what the bumps are. You have to know the muscles. If you don't know them by heart, then it's have a book with you, like a diagram that you can go to, something to reference from. Another one is quick sketch, anatomy quick sketch, and I usually spend about 10 to 20 minutes on one anatomy quick sketch. That's not really quick sketch anymore, but I think for an anatomy study it is. Basically, you get a pose, and instead of tracing it, you just do a quick sketch, and you try to add as much anatomical information into that quick sketch as possible. So you still start with that gesture that we did in the figure drawing course for like a minute or two. You do that gesture and the general lay-in, do that lightly, and then on top you start tracking the muscles and the bones and stuff. A good way to start is find the landmarks, the bony landmarks. That way you'll know where to point all the muscles and where all the attachments are going to go. Let's see. Well, using the 3D models, but you guys don't have access to those yet. Basically, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you guys poses of a skeleton, right? So different photographs of the skeleton pose, and you're going to have to add the muscles onto the skeleton. And I'm going to try to make poses that match photographs of models. So you could basically use the models as a cheat sheet. So you got the skeleton, and you don't look at the model. You just try to add the muscles, and then you can look at the models and check your work. Or if you're stuck, you can check your work. So that's good. But really, just start. Get some books. Robert Beverly Hale's Anatomical Human Anatomy. What is it called?
Are you talking about a master class in figure drawing?
No, his anatomy book.
Oh, you're talking about that's actually Paul Richet's anatomy.
Yeah, Paul Richet.
Paul Richard, yeah, and Robert Beverly Hale translated.
Yes, his book I use every day.
Yeah.
Goldfinger book is really good.
Yeah, amazing.
Another one, one that I've found recently within the year that I love is Strength Training Anatomy.
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that what it's called, Marshall?
Strength Training Anatomy, yeah.
Do you remember the author?
No, I don't offhand. But
Yeah, it's a book for learning how to lift weights, but the author is an amazing artist, and he knows his anatomy.
Yeah.
Every page is a new pose with all the anatomy drawn in there. It's just amazing. I love it. It's good inspiration for your anatomy studies, and it's also good reference for when you're doing your own studies. You could try to find maybe a similar pose in that book and kind of see what he did with it, and you can kind of use his guide to figure out what the bumps are that you're seeing on your model. Because there's not many books out there that have anatomical grids in poses. A lot of these books are, anatomical pose where the guy's just kind of standing up and you've got side view, front view, back view, but not many are posed in various positions. But this one is really good for that. So it's Strength Training Anatomy. So yeah, anyway, but I'm going to talk about all this stuff when the anatomy course starts, what things you should get and what you should study. So, next question.
There are so many questions here, and as I rifle through them, I want to answer all of them, and there's some of them that I can't find anymore. Serenity had one that was a heartfelt question. Some of them are just expressing opinions, like don't like grids. If you don't like grids, don't use them.
Dang, Marshall. Don't attack our audience.
I think what happens is at any point you make, there's going to be an opposite truth to it. Grids are confining, but so are cups. And you use them so that the water will only be here. And the reason you use a grid is because without a grid, you can't tell where you are. But yeah, if you're going to do stuff like what Ralph Steadman does or Gerald Scarr, for people who are real wild caricaturists and that kind of thing, you would never use a grid for that. It's a lot of this is having the discernment, having the wisdom to know when you do not use a tool. Marshall showed me to use the hammer, and that's how come I put in jail as I was using the hammer to do this surgery on my little. You have to know that some tools are good for some things and not for others. Grids are very, very useful when you need them, and death when they're going to hold you in when you should be exploring outside of them.
Cool. So you just answered the question that you thought you didn't want to answer. Did you see any that you liked?
I see with sometimes people when they do their questions, they're no matter what you say, you can say north is north, and they'll say no, north isn't north, and they'll have a whole kind of thing without. It's a balance thing. But there was one very heartfelt question. It was from Serenity, and it was not the one about.
And I'll start the next one.
Yeah.
Any advice on recognizing different types of shadow on an object or a person? I find it difficult to distinguish the darkest shade from the midtones, etc., since lighting isn't always perfect. Love your vids. Recognizing different types of shadows. Okay. Well, if there's confusing lighting on the object, it's going to be pretty hard. Like if there's multiple light sources, you won't be able to really say this is a shadow, this is light, because there's light coming from various directions, and so it's going to be a little bit more challenging. Also, if you're outside on a shady day, on a cloudy day, you're not going to necessarily get like clear core shadows and reflected light. It's going to be very soft, and you're kind of just going to get a gradation from light to dark on the forms. So I would say if you're having a hard time with it, start by getting good, well-lit reference. And what I mean by well-lit, it is a single light where it's obvious to see a highlight, a halftone, a core shadow, reflected light, cast shadow. More dramatic lighting. Once you're really comfortable with those and you're able to identify everything, then you can start seeing more subtleties in the subject matter that's not lit with one light source. But as always, practice. Basically, if you have a hard time seeing the difference between a dark and a mid-tone, that means your eye hasn't been tuned to seeing value. So it's just like being able to see color. You just have to practice it a lot. Look at it constantly. Try to reevaluate values. Do value studies. So you look at a photograph and you just use the side of your pencil and you try to just kind of paint it in. Value studies. Or just try to simplify it down to four values. Instead of trying to match everything perfectly, just use a dark shadow, a lighter shadow, and then a halftone, and then the third one is the highlight, or the fourth one is the highlight, which is just the white of the paper. So really, it's like 3 tones that you're adding to the paper, and then 1 highlight. And by simplifying it, you're identifying the major tonal ranges.
Something that someone told me once too about simplifying shadows versus simplifying the halftone area is if your subject from your point of view is mostly in the light, like if there's just a small hint of shadow like there is on our faces or on your face right now, Stan, where the cast shadow is a relatively small portion, that's where you're going to simplify. You're going to simplify in the shadow areas, and then you're going to explain more of the form through halftones in the lit area. But if your subject is mostly in shadow with just like a rim lighting, almost all of your modeling and three-dimensional drawing and rendering is going to be happening in the shadow area. So you're going to have, for lack of a better term, halftones within the shadows. You're going to have, your core shadow, your reflected light, and the lit area, the area that's normally in the full light, that's going to be just all blown out and overexposed, and you're going to simplify that. And those are like sort of the extremes of how I treat light and shadow when I'm trying to figure out where to place it, like what to do with the shadow area. Do I give it rendering or do I just give it an even tone? I look like, does the shadow take up more than 50% of the area I'm looking at?
Mm. Yeah, like Marshall right now, for example, is like backlit, right? He's got lights behind him. And so if you were to draw Marshall, well, now you changed it. So if you were to draw Marshall, you would have to add a lot of detail to the shadow area because most of his face is in shadow. And then you basically just overexpose the rim light back here, and then maybe definitely add a lot of detail here.
I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I'm done.
I met a design teacher years ago who I said, how did you learn design? He said, hey, I got the best design lesson for painting from a teacher who had me go to the Norton Simon Museum with a piece of paper that had 3 columns. And the first one was artists who put their detail in the light areas and bleed together the shadows. The next one was artists who put their detail in the shadow areas and bleed together the lights. And the third one was artists who put detail in both areas, the shadow and the light areas. And he said that he had a long list of names on this one and a long list of names on this one, and then on the third one there were hardly any paintings at all. Because it's sort of like you may be a night person and you get your best work done at night, but it's best if you sleep during the day if you're a night person. And you may be a day person where you get your work during the day and you sleep at night. But there are very few people who can be both a day and a night person because it exhausts you. And you look at most artists, they do. Howard Pyle would put a great deal of his detail in the halftone area. But you look at Andrew Wyeth, and Andrew Wyeth would often just bleed out the highlights and put his detail in the shadow area because, like you said, with me, it's more backlit. So the point being that you're making a choice where to do it. And you don't want to exhaust your viewer by never giving him a chance to rest.
You done?
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I was again looking through the.
Can I make a comment about some of the questions here? I want to find Serenity's question that it disappeared. And some
I found one. I found something by Serenity.
Yeah, I have one too here.
Why don't you highlight it, Stan?
Oh, where'd it go? Crap.
I am terrified of drawing when before that's almost all I did. Is that the one?
Yeah, that's the one. Keep going with that one.
Oh, geez. I just had it. Oh, there. Okay, I'm selecting it now. Okay, I'm terrified of drawing when before that's almost all I did. I miss making art. I know that's what I need to do. So what is that fear that keeps one from doing the necessary work? How can it be removed? Is it possible?
Now, I can't answer that question for you, but that is a heartfelt question. I mean, that's there was another. Serenity, did you also ask something else about? Someone asked about becoming unsure. I think that was Carrie or Casey, maybe.
Carlin, yeah. That was an earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, these are questions that are apart from technical knowledge. You can have all the technical knowledge in the world and lose that spirit that makes you want to make an image. And those can be really, really rough things. I teach on it, and I don't want to go into, I don't want to go into a 20-minute lecture on this, but I can tell you that I got a lot of benefit from reading George Leonard's book, Mastery. And I can give you a 30-second book. No, can I have 1 minute on this? Am I taking up too much time if we go for this?
Go ahead. But right after this question, we're going to do a speed round because it's already 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So go ahead.
When we are growing from our beginnings to wherever our greatest peak will be, it does not go in a straight line. It goes in, he puts it in little stair steps. I put it in something more organic. The line toward that greatest potential we have is going to meander. It's going to have ups and downs. It's going to be affected by relationships. It's going to be affected by just the condition of our bodies. It's going to be affected by weather. It can be affected by all sorts of things. But if we are aware that we are in a stage, that helps. I made a quote that somebody, Neil Gaiman and Amanda Palmer and somebody else tweeted about that artist's block and that fear that you're having may be something that is not just a stage. It may be something that's got to be dealt with. But all of us go through stages, and we have to acknowledge them as stages, and sometimes we need to get away from something so that we can come back and bear fruit later. A tree, most trees do not produce fruit all year around. Go through a period of dormancy, and then they sprout. When I read what you're saying, you don't give any of the reasons that you think that you've lost your, that you gained your fear, and that's again, that's something that needs to be dealt with in your community of people, your support, your mentors, your therapist, or whoever else. But it isn't the end. I've gone through so many stages in my making of art, and some of them were excruciating, and some of them I thought were the end, and some of them ended up not being the end at all. They were just periods of dormancy. But I guess when I read these questions, I look at the technical ones, and I think, well, you can get that out of books, and you can get that in the anatomy course, and we're going to teach that in the perspective course, and that's something I've taught many times before, and that's something you've got access to, that information. But when I read people who are talking about the problem of the process, that somehow just makes me wish we could have a separate hangout like this and focus the questions on a theme.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can really deal with that instead of just shotgunning all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I have one real simple thought on that question, and this may not really address her deeper issues, but him or her, I don't know, Serenity, but don't draw in a sketchbook. Like, I don't draw in sketchbooks anymore. I draw on loose sheets of paper, because whenever I draw in a sketchbook and I start to build up a few pages of good drawings, I'm always afraid I'm going to ruin the sketchbook with the next page. And so I don't draw in that sketchbook. I have a few good drawings, and I have about 20, pages, 20 sketchbooks over there with only a few pages of drawings in them. And that's a little bit of that anxiety of not wanting to draw, or there's too much pressure because it's going in a book. It's that self-appointed pressure that you put on yourself to perform because you think someone else is going to look at it and you're going to share that sketchbook with someone eventually. But if it's just on a loose sheet of paper, and you get a stack of papers, maybe even rip your sketchbook pages out of the book and then draw on the pages individually, because then you can just throw that one page away. I mean, sure, you can rip a page out of a sketchbook. Anyone can do that. But that's just a simple little thing psychologically you can do yourself to trick yourself into being a little more bold, is get rid of the sketchbook. Just draw on loose sheet of paper.
It's like taking the audience away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that same fear. Like, I know that when I open up my sketchbook, I'm like, ooh, wait, is this going to be a good sketch or a bad sketch? And I always, I have this pressure of making it good because it's stuck in the sketchbook. So I actually have two. I have one where I know I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this, and if it goes in a bad direction, I could save it. And I have another one where I'm just throwing in crap. Like, I don't care. This is a bad sketchbook, and I know it's a bad sketchbook, so I don't care what I do in here. So I just kind of, like, if I have an idea and I'm like, oh, I gotta draw this real quick, I'll do it in that bad sketchbook. And it's kind of like your loose paper.
Maybe we need to give them new names: a draw book, a display book, a sketchbook, and a mistake book.
Mistake book, yeah.
But if you start drawing on loose sheets all the time, you do have to have an organizational system. So I always get like these little flat boxes or archival boxes from the art store, and I just throw my keepers in there because you don't want a bunch of loose sheets just in your drawers everywhere. You gotta have some system still. A sketchbook is convenient for binding the sheets together, but a box will do just fine.
Yep. Okay. Well, one thing I wanted to add to that was that. Maybe she's afraid of failing. I mean, I know that I have that issue. One of my biggest fears is failure, and so it always kind of stops me from doing something. Or it doesn't really stop me, but it's always a hurdle. And I usually just identify it and say, okay, I'm afraid that this isn't going to be the way I wanted it to be. And by identifying it, you can tackle it much more successfully. You could just say, you know what, if I fail, it's okay. If you have to do a painting in class and you're really afraid that your teacher isn't going to like what you did, that's going to probably make your painting worse because you're afraid the whole time. So you have to allow yourself to be bad. And you have to just remove that fear somehow. I mean, it's an inner battle, so it's kind of hard to help people with that. But really, just try to tell yourself it's okay to fail, and just do your best, and that's it.
That's probably the better answer. Actually confronting and dealing with your fear rather than tricking yourself into not being afraid is probably the stronger way to go. So listen to Stan.
Mike Moran's Do It Wrong Quickly. And fail early and fail often.
Yeah.
You told me that with your videos, Stan, right? When you first were doing your art instruction videos, you said that they weren't working, and you kept going until you found a way to make them work, right?
Yeah, I didn't publish my first few videos that I made. I mean, they were just really bad. It was my first few videos, and I didn't really have a way of creating them yet. And like my third one was the drawing the head from any angle, and I got my rhythm. I figured out how to do it right. But yeah, at the point where I was trying to make them and they were really bad, it kind of sucked. Like, I'm like, I want to do this, but it's not working. But
you suck.
Learning.
The fear is that what if I'm no good? But we can't know until we've tried over and over. George Leonard says that you can never be a master unless you're willing to be a fool. People who are not willing to be fools will simply never be masters. You'll be in the safe zone and you'll never take a chance. You'll never learn to walk if you don't fall down. And I think that that's a huge part of getting good at what we do, is to just acknowledge I'm going to suck for a while and I'm going to be okay with this. And the person who can acknowledge that and accept it the longest and keeping may very well be the person who reaches the greatest potential, because they just are not bothered by the fact that it can't be right the first time.
Yeah, the ones I think that have to really battle through it in the beginning, they end up being better freelance artists, more disciplined artists. If it comes too easy for you in the beginning, you kind of get spoiled, and when it gets tough, it's easier to quit and just kind of get depressed over it because you're so used to it being easy.
Yeah, I have a paragraph that I want to write on that I started, and I can't say it as well as I can write it. So since I don't have a blog right now, maybe I make a blog, just a paragraph, and send people to it.
You could write a blog post on it, and we'll publish it.
That's what I'm going to do.
But if you're having a hard time, if you're really struggling, think of it as a good thing, because you are developing your discipline for struggle and for failure. And so when you're a pro and things are tough, you'll be able to deal with it better than the people who got it naturally.
Yeah, if it was easy for them, it's like the butterfly that somebody takes their struggle away by cutting them out of the cocoon. The butterfly just dies. It's the one that it's hard for it to get out that it comes out strong. So there is actually a disadvantage to having it come easy quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unless that person also is able to do something else they're not good at, and they can develop their discipline in that way. And that way they got discipline and something comes naturally to them. So it's like...
You know, we were having a conversation years ago about guitarists, mentioning favorite guitarists. And our list of favorite guitarists had a number of them who were either missing a finger or who had a damaged hand or some kind of handicap that would keep you from becoming a great guitarist. And it's the thing that seems likely from that, my first guess is that the person who it was harder for right from the beginning is the one right from the beginning who worked harder at this so that they could just be normal. And then they're in the habit of working harder, so that when they're normal, they're in that habit and they're going to reach greater heights. They know how hard it is.
Cool. Okay, let's move on. It seems like this is a perspective question. So, oh yeah, by the way, guys, we're doing a lightning round. Try to get through as many as possible. Okay.
Oh.
How much more time do I'm sorry that I have to. I told you I was committed to be here, but I am going to have to go.
Oh yeah, that's fine. We were really supposed to do this till 7. It's 7:13. So okay. You have to leave now.
I can stick around for a couple more minutes. Is there any other?
Okay, do this one last question. This is perspective. So.
Okay.
How much perspective do you need to know for figure drawing, or just drawing characters?
That is such a general question that I could tell you you need 6 months, but for you 6 months and 3 days. For another person, maybe 8 months. I mean, how could I answer that? And the answer is enough to where you don't run into trouble if the model's head is like this, and you decide, I'd like to put the model's head like this, or I'd like to put the model's head like this. And if you know how to translate the head into a form and change it in a position, well, then you've got enough perspective. And but other than that, it's difficult to quantify how much perspective you need. When you're having trouble drawing the figure, well, what does that mean? Drawing the figure? Big chunk of drawing is controlling the figure in space. So perspective, when you master it, will take away that trouble.
All right, cool. Thank you, Marshall. And if you have to go now, you can.
I've got to go now, but it seems like there was something else that I wanted to say. Oh, can I pitch what I'm doing? I'm going to be at CTN Animation Expo this weekend in Burbank on Friday, and going to be speaking there to the professional animators and everybody else who's there about M.C. Escher and Heinrich Klei, the extremes of the creative process, from careful planning to wild improvisation. Those two are two of the greatest artists of the 20th century, technically, M.C. Escher, Heinrich Kley. One of them is one of the most careful planners in the world, and one of them is the most wild improvisational artist in the world. And then if you go to my website, you'll see the other stuff I'm doing. I'm teaching a class on the creative process at Gallery Nucleus in Los Angeles on December 20th, for those of you around here. But just go to marshallart.com. Do we need to spell that out, or will everybody know? It's MARSHALLART.com, and you'll find out more about those two things. And I'm going to be working with Stan next year to do the perspective course that will be the last perspective course you will ever need to know how to draw anything in any position in space.
Ooh, I got a controversial question here, Marshall.
Okay, good. You're hooking me. Go ahead.
Okay.
Can't say no to it.
Why do you guys assume that it is a good thing to popularize drawing?
Is it not a good thing? I don't want to argue it. Is it not a good thing to assume that?
I don't know. It's like, why do we assume it's good?
That sounds like an intellectual's question. But what is the point, though? Can the person elaborate on it? Is it not a good thing to popularize?
I'm going to answer why I'm assuming it's good, and well, actually, I'm not really assuming. All of this is targeted towards people that want to learn how to draw and paint or animate or be good at the visual medium. So if you're not that, if you have some other purpose, then drawing probably isn't good for you. But for people that want to get good at the visual medium, drawing is one of the best ways to get good at the fundamentals. It's the easiest, it's the cheapest method of doing that. So that's why I'm assuming it's a good thing. But
do you assume it's a good thing?
No, you should never draw. No. That's like telling a basketball player, why study dribbling and shooting? It's the basis of everything. Am I misreading the question? If you want to be an artist, you have to learn how to draw. And popularize drawing, does that just mean promoting drawing above learning painting?
Maybe just making more people want to draw.
Yeah.
I do think it's a good thing for more people to draw because it's good for your creativity, it's good for your soul, it makes you feel good, it's fun, it's relaxing. Well, sometimes.
What's not to like about it?
You can make it relaxing. But it's therapeutic if you make it therapeutic.
I think it's frustrating to a lot of people that are struggling. If you're struggling with the drawing, then it's not such a fun part of the art process, where you're having a lot of difficulty with perspective or anatomy or making something look the way you want. You're not going to like drawing that much, but you can't really do anything without drawing. So, yeah, you kind of have to suck it up and, really focus on drawing more than painting, really, at least in the beginning.
I assume it's good.
Another question to Marshall before you leave. What crime would I have to commit in order for Marshall Vandruff to have a podcast?
You wouldn't have to commit a crime. We got to work it out. Who is the person asking?
Tukos Hangs.
Say the name again.
Tukos Hangs.
Tukos. Let's work it out. I don't have a podcast. I would like to do this. I would like to do what we've done here regularly, but I think that we need to, instead of having shotgun questions, we need to have questions that are around a theme, so that I'd like to come in prepared.
Yeah.
To answer questions without shifting gears all over the place.
Yeah, maybe next time we could do this again. When soon or not, we can talk about it. But next time, let's ask for questions like a few days in advance. Filter through them, go through the best ones, think about the answers, and we'll do it that way. So yeah, and I'll send the newsletter for questions.
We're learning how to do these. And I do assume that it is a good thing to popularize drawing. I assume it because I wanted to learn how to draw. I loved drawing when I was in a kid and in high school, And everybody had a particular way of teaching drawing that was purely observation. And when I wanted to learn how to invent, I was asking everybody, how do you do it? How do animators do what they do? How do comic book artists do? How do the old masters draw animals in these invented positions that they couldn't copy photographs? And practically nobody knew how it was done. And I'd get all sorts of runarounds. And so it took me 10 years from 18 to 28 years old of seeking how is it that you learn how to draw where you feel confident that you can do it, the way you can feel confident to write a paragraph and not have to get out a dictionary to do it or look up the shaped letters. And it took me 10 years to find it. And when I found it, I was so thrilled to know that you can break the world down into simple forms and you can learn some things about anatomy and you can learn that the abstract design affects people's emotions, that I became a teacher. I never went through university. I never finished school. I never got any degree. I went into the profession to be an illustrator, and it was so hard to do it without instruction that I needed, that when I got an opportunity to teach, I pursued that so that I could try to learn it. Taught anatomy and taught perspective just that I could learn it. So yes, it came so hard for me to learn classic drawing skills. It took so many years, and I didn't get it until I was in my 30s, that's kind of why I'm a teacher now, is to make it so that if you are a young teenager who wants to master drawing, that your trajectory toward mastery will happen in a few years, like it used to for people who were in apprenticeships with masters historically. So by the time you're 18, you can be completely, have it all under your belt, not have to ask any of these questions. But if you get that by the time you're in your 20s, or if you get it by the time you're in your 30s or 40s, at least you get it. Once you learn how to read and write, you can write your stories and your poems. And once you learn how to draw, you can put whatever you've got in your imagination onto paper. And I do assume that's a good thing. So whoever asked that question, that's the best I can do in my answer.
Cool. All right. Well, Court, let's do 2 more questions, and then we'll.
And I'll see you guys.
Yeah.
Good being here with you.
Marshall, thanks a lot.
Right.
Bye, Marshall.
Bye.
Yeah. Okay, Court. So I think this is a good one for you.
I saw one that you highlighted earlier that was actually addressed to me. Was that the one? Yeah.
Oh, wait. There was one addressed to you?
Yeah, it said this one's addressed to Mr. Jones.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Where is it? I did highlight that.
Well, I can look at this question while you're looking for that.
Yeah.
This is from Avril Harder. Is there any way to improve speed without losing a lot of quality or detail? I draw portraits and they take me 15 to 20 hours. I'd like to shave off some time and make it more like 10 to 15 hours. Wow, 10 to 15 hours. I mean, to me, that's a really, really long drawing. Actually, talking about portrait paintings or drawings, it doesn't really actually specify. If it's a painting, that's definitely understandable. And there are people who do spend 10, 15, 20 or more hours on a drawing. I'm not one of those people normally. Most of my head studies are no more than 3 hours. But like as Stan said earlier, it's really beneficial to spend some time doing those really, really long studies with maybe instead of using charcoal to do a 3-hour drawing, get a few graphite pencils, starting from light working to dark, and really render the heck out of it. But as far as exercises to improve your speed that you're spending on these, I mean, maybe it is a problem of, not a problem, but a decision you're making with some of the tools. If you are using graphite pencils and smooth Bristol paper, that lends itself more to spending more time on the drawing. If you want to speed up, I do recommend charcoal pencils and newsprint. For one, you're not as concerned about those materials. You're not, they're not as precious because they're not as expensive. And working with charcoal pencils, I like pencils as opposed to charcoal sticks because you can sharpen them to a real fine point and you don't get your hands as messy. But you can more paint with the pencil, especially if you sharpen the pencil really long. I don't think I have any here, but instead of using a pencil sharpener, like you would for a normal pencil drawing. You take a razor blade, you take off the last 3 inches of wood and get a really long, fine point where you have about an inch or two of charcoal exposed, and then you can paint with it on its side, use it more like a brush to shade in areas, and that's going to allow you to actually cover an area without having to do a bunch of cross-hatching. So you're just going to physically be able to cover areas more quickly if you use charcoal on its side. And then just set a timer and set a goal. If it doesn't look finished to you within a 3 to 5 hour time period, or a 10-hour time period, if that's what you want to do with a 10-hour drawing, if you're still not getting to your goal, that's okay. Just abandon that drawing. And each time you do a new 5 or 10-hour study, or even a 3-hour study, you're going to learn what it takes to get to a finished stage earlier and earlier. So do descending time exercises. You know, if your goal is to do a 10-hour drawing and have it look finished, set your timer for 10 hours. I personally recommend doing it a lot quicker. Do some 20-minute head studies, and then work your way back up. It's all a matter of just doing the exercises that get you to where you want to go, and start with the extreme. Start with the really, really quick sketches, and see how much you can get done in that time period. And again, I recommend charcoal and newsprint as opposed to pencil, because it'll help you draw a little faster, I think.
Yeah, okay. I definitely agree. But yeah, basically, if you want to shave off some time, go to the other extreme and do quick sketch, and it'll help you find more of a middle ground in there. Because I think one of the reasons is you're spending so long on these now is because you might not know what those most important things are that you need to keep in a drawing if you have very little time to work on it. So you're probably spending a lot of time on maybe unnecessary things that you could take out of the portrait. Also, if it's taking you so long, there might be a good thing to keep doing it for now. I mean, it depends on how long you've been drawing 15, 20-hour drawings. But when you spend a long time on it, you develop your eye for analyzing things and for judging value, color, edge, shape. And the more you make these judgments over and over again, the quicker you'll be able to make these judgments, and you'll be able to just speed up the whole process. So if you've only been doing if you've done 5 drawings that they've taken you 15 hours, then yeah, that's understandable. It's going to take you a long time. But if you've been doing this for a few years now and it's still taking you that long, go do quick sketch. Just go to the other extreme and start simplifying everything. So, okay, Court, I couldn't find the one that said Mr. Jones in it.
Well, I do remember the question. I read through it, and it essentially was, regarding caricatures, this person was feeling that their caricature exaggerations were a little stiff, maybe formulaic, or just not as dynamic as they wanted to be. Are there any exercises you recommend for getting a more, I guess, for lack of a better word, a dynamic quality to the caricature sketches? And it depends on your procedure for drawing them. Like, I have a multi-stage process if I'm working on a real serious piece and I really want to develop it, like the George Takei painting back there. I knew I wanted to make it into a painting, so I started out first with really loose, rough thumbnail sketches to find the exaggeration. So I allowed myself the freedom to find a really loose, fun way of drawing the head, and the way of building the head that wasn't too stiff in the thumbnail sketch stage, where I spent 2 or 3 minutes on a drawing. And I didn't care how they turned out, so I was more bold and more brave with what I was doing. Then the next stage of that, though, was I would take one of those loose drawings and then refine it after that. I would take those wild decisions I made and then just control them a little bit more in the next stage, because I still personally like my drawings to have correct anatomy, where the eyes are both on the same plane, for instance. Unless the exaggeration calls for uneven eyes, on some people that might be the case. But I want those distortions to be my own choice. I don't want the distortions or the inaccuracies or really messing up the anatomy. I don't want that to be an accident. I want it to be intentional. So I'll start loose, I'll start quick, and that's when I'll make the initial exaggeration decision. And then to get to the finish, I will do a tracing of it or redraw it using those exact same shapes, but just tightening it up a little bit, but not too much. And that's how you avoid, I think, getting one of those safe, stiff caricatures where there's not a lot of exaggeration. Is because you start with, you do your first drawing with the intention of that being your final drawing. You shouldn't do that. You should always break it up into several stages. Start loose, start quick, and then refine it later.
Yeah, and that actually answers the other question that was for you, is how do you approach oil painting? What's your process from beginning to finish? So that answers it too, right?
Yeah, I just do my work. I do all the hard work in the sketch phase, where it's by the time it gets to the canvas and I'm actually projecting it or enlarging it, I've already gone through all those exaggeration decisions. There are some fantastic painters and caricature painters like Sebastian Kruger, who really doesn't do caricatures anymore, but he'll do his painting and drawing right at the same time on the canvas with a giant brush, and he'll design it all in one step and then work on the finish. He doesn't do any preparatory sketches. And that's not how I work. Some people might be able to do that, but that's working at a really high level. And I might do it sometimes as a fun exercise to just start painting right on the canvas with no drawing first, but that's a really tough thing to do.
Cool. Well, I think that's it. We've gone on for 2.5 hours, so cool. Thanks, Court. Thank you, everybody, for asking all these great questions. There's a lot that we didn't go through, so if you want to see more of these, let us know. Let us know what you think we should improve for next time. I mean, we're kind of winging it. I mean, so let us know what you think we should improve. And if you haven't signed up for the anatomy course, it's still on a discount. So if you know you're going to get it at a discount. Because next Monday it's not going to be discounted anymore. So otherwise, you can just watch the free videos. That's fine too. So, and Court, you wanna? Are you doing anything right now? You're going to be at any conventions where people can meet you? Or?
No, I'm afraid I don't have any immediate plans in the next couple months to do anything like that. And I don't have any products coming out. Just working on my own stuff, and of course working on some classes with you, some videos. So just people look out for the my caricature series early next year.
Yeah, and actually for that we are working. We're well into creating the caricature series already. If you guys have any suggestions, anything you want Court to cover in the caricature course, email it to me, because we're currently making it. So definitely want to hear what you would want to see in a caricature course, and that's going to help Court with the curriculum and the lessons.
Yeah.
All right, I guess that's it. Cool. Thank you. Everybody. I'll see you next time, and I'll see you all the students on Monday with the first anatomy lesson. Bye.
Bye-bye.